should women sacrifice their happiness to keep the family together? So if he's not bringing in his weight, he does no longer make her happy. She doesn't want to be with him. Should she still try to make it work regardless because she already has baby number two? Because we sit here and say, bring back shame, do this, do that. But if you got yourself in a situation with a man you no longer desire to be with, but you have their child or you're carrying their child, should you just suck it up and just suffer for the long run? Because
Absolutely not.
Mm-mm.
Absolutely not.
not what
No,
do you
women used to do that. Women used to do that when they didn't have any other option. And then they were unhappy for years, just dealing with a man that they didn't want to be with just for the family. And, regardless, some people are like, oh, do it for the kids. And like the kids see that mom and dad aren't happy. The kids see that you guys aren't in love anymore. So it's like, what are you really doing it for? So
Mm-hmm.
that's the question that I want to know. And it just in your mental health, you being happy means everything. And if you're not happy, your kids see it, it passes down. I don't think any woman should do that. Do I think you should try? Absolutely. If it's something that can be fixed or worked on, absolutely. Don't just, skate out just because if it's something that is fixable. But if there's no reconciliation that can happen and it's just over with, then leave.
what let's go in order. Chanel, what do you think? Should a woman sacrifice, and thank you, Curse for Life, that was a good one. Chanel, do you think a woman should sacrifice her happiness and just put up with it because she decided to have a baby? That was her choice. Is that how she takes responsibility, is by marrying that man and being with him and just sticking it out because they have kids together or a kid together?
I want to know what the sacrifice is. If it's cheating, that's really up to that woman, especially if children are involved, or abuse. In my personal opinion, abuse and cheating are two things that I think should be separated from this.
What if he's
Um,
not financially pulling his weight? What if
if
he
it's not
feels
financially pulling
that
his weight, life goes on. Things change. You get promotions, you get better jobs, you get better education. Stick it out. Why are we giving, you know, yes, back in the days, the women didn't have much education or financials or what have you. But today, women are doing so much better financially. Why are we giving up a family, especially with children involved, because he's not making money? Those things can change. Those things can change. And then you also, from what I said prior, seeing who he is before marrying him, before children, you would know the type of man he is already. He's a hardworking man. He's gonna make money eventually. Just try to see through the eyes of him. Is he leading you to something, or is he leading you off a cliff? There's a difference. The type of man that you marry, a quality man, will actually lead you and tell you what is going on, how he's moving, what the plans are. Now, sacrificing happiness. Happiness is fleeting. There are going to be times where you hate him. There are going to be times where you love him. You just want to be all up in his skin, as my mom would say. There's ebbs and flows to relationships, like I said before. Happiness is fleeting. What you need is joy. And my last point is, us as Black people in the United States, we've been doing the I'm happy so much. Where has it gotten us today? Destruction. We need to start thinking of the collective. We keep doing individual, 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 and now we're all over the place. Let us come together, come to a consensus, and actually try to be a group. And it starts with family. So you'll be unhappy for a little bit because he gets on your nerves, or she gets on his nerves, whatever. But marriage is not just about happiness. There's so much more to it. You build.
Because with a society is telling women, choose you, choose happiness, even if it at the extent of breaking up the family. You gotta do what you gotta do. The kids will be okay. They'll see their dad every other
The
weekend.
kids will not be
They'll be
okay.
fine.
The
Society
statistics
tells
are against us. They are against us when it comes to that. We all know the statistic. Children that grow up in a mother and father home who are married are best, the best of the best. I'm not saying that they're perfect and they'll never commit crimes and they'll never do, but they are the top when it comes to those statistics. So why not set yourself up for success? Why not?
Miss Taken, how do you feel about that?
Unmute yourself first so we can hear you.
I said, repeat the question.
The
I
question:
got to make sure I have it right.
should a woman sacrifice her happiness at the extent of keeping the family together? So, as an example, Summer Walker, if her boyfriend or whatever is having financial difficulties,
Mhm.
seeming like he can't get it together, he can't pull his weight, or a woman who's just no longer happy being with that man, he doesn't make her happy, he's not satisfying her needs. She's tried and tried again, and at this point, it's like either become a two-time baby mama or stick it out. Which what would advice? What do you think?
All right. So, um, is a different. I think if you, because I've seen a situation where a guy that I know got someone pregnant and married her because he was like, I don't want her to be another statistic. I want to do the right thing, right? And he married her, um, and then ended up having another kid with her, within a marriage. But because he knew he never loved her to begin with, in his mind, he's like, I'm gonna just sacrifice, and I'm, just not gonna deal with, I'm gonna just be in this marriage, knowing that I'm not necessarily in love with her, but be there for the kids. The end result was they got divorced anyway, and then he remarried and is now in a happy marriage with, two kids. So in that regard, I don't think if it happens before you get married, I don't think you should move forward in a marriage when you already know that the odds are against you to begin with, and you're going into a marriage knowing you're not happy with this person, knowing that you already have issues with this person, to just go and get married to them anyway for the sake of the kids. I think you're doing a disservice to the kids, because the likelihood of that marriage working, you're going to end up divorced anyway. So now that's more trauma that I would think the kids would go through, because they've seen the parents together and now they're separated. However, I do think it's different when you're already married. Um, I do believe that, and I know a lot of people don't want to, hear this, but I mean, like Chanel said, when you are married, it ebbs and flows. There's going to be times where you're unhappy in your marriage. And sometimes it has nothing to do with the partner. Sometimes the partner becomes the scapegoat, but is your own unhappiness, and it's easier to kind of scapegoat somebody else. Like, if he only picked up his shoes, or if he only did this, I would be happy, but it's not that. But because it ebbs and flows, and happiness, just like anger, just like sadness, all of those are fleeting emotions. So if you still have the same core values, the same beliefs, the same goal, I do think you should sacrifice your happiness, I would say, for a period of time. Because again, just like you can fall out of happiness, you can fall back into it. I think a lot of times we don't give enough time for that to happen. We don't like sitting in discomfort. We don't like being in a phase of unhappiness. So we automatically look for the thing to make us feel good or make us not feel bad. And in a marriage, you can't do that. You're gonna have to sacrifice. And sometimes that sacrifice may be your happiness, because it's not just about you. It's about the kids, it's about the husband, and vice versa. But I think if you have a foundation of what your ultimate goal is, then I think sacrificing your happiness for a period of time, I'm not saying live a whole miserable, 20 years of marriage, or whatever. When it becomes, now at that point, it becomes a mental issue for you, where you can't fully show up in your marriage to your husband or your kids. I'm not saying if you're, in that situation, but I do think there were times in my marriage where I was unhappy. He knew it. There were times that he was unhappy. I knew it, because we still communicated with each other. But the bottom line was, how do we work through it? What do we need to do to make it better? And that's where the conversation needs to be, so you can be there for the kids.
Miss Taken, you changed my whole mind. Yes, I appreciate that. I appreciate your take on that, for real.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Chamonix.
So I absolutely agree with Mistaken and Chanel. I compromise, so it's all about compromising. And you're right. Feelings fleet, they're fleet, they come and they go. But I would just say the only exception to that is if it turns into like alcohol, being, an alcoholic, or if you're so miserable where you're lashing out at the kids, or you are doing things in front of the kids that can be almost abuse, not hands-on abusive, but just not a good environment for your children. That's the only way. Other than that, if you guys are two adults and you're able to communicate effectively and you're able to work together to raise your children in a healthy environment, I say stick it out. Other than that, only if it's unhealthy, even for the children, because I can tell you that having two parents in a household in an unhealthy situation is just as bad, if not worse, than being in a single parent household. You will want to make sure the household is in a healthy, it's a healthy dynamic. But yes, I do believe that you should stick it out. If it's a person you can stick it out with, whether you're happy or not, stick it out and try to do it for the children.